COVID-19 hit a lot of countries pretty hard. Apart from people dying, lots of people lost their jobs. Companies went out of business. Depression and anxiety increased. Governments had to spend trillions of dollars of borrowed money to help support their citizens. Not a fun time. But a pandemic affects different parts of the world in different ways. The general rule is that whatever is bad gets worse. When large numbers of people get scared about their future, whatever is bad in society tends to get worse. So, in countries with high levels of religious discrimination, discrimination tends to get worse when something goes horribly wrong. In Pakistan, discrimination against Hindus and Christians would tend to get worse. In China, discrimination against Christians and Muslims would tend to get worse. Since this isn't the sort of thing that Western journalists would ever find important enough to report, let's read some examples from the Open Doors 2021 World Watch List. The coronavirus pandemic was the event of a generation, and in addition to the pain felt by people all over the world, it also exposed the ugliness of Christian persecution in a new way. In India, more than 100,000 Christians received relief aid from Open Doors partners to help them through the pandemic. Of these believers, 80% reported to World Watch List researchers that they were dismissed from food distribution points. Some walked miles and hid their Christian identity to get food elsewhere. Another 15% received food aid but reported other discrimination, such as being passed over for employment. It wasn't just in India. In Myanmar, Nepal, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Central Asia, Malaysia, North Africa, Yemen, and Sudan, there are reports of Christians in rural areas being denied aid. Sometimes this denial was at the hands of government officials, but more often it was from village heads, committees, or other local leaders. Some Christians even reported that their food ration cards were torn up or waved away. In southern Kaduna, Nigeria, families from several villages said they received 1/6 of the rations allocated to Muslim families. In Guinea-Bissau, when a state of emergency was imposed, some Christians said Muslim neighbors complained to the government about them, while in Guinea, one leader said church closures prompted followers of local animist religions to mock pastors. The global pandemic made persecution more obvious than ever, simply because so many people needed help. The clear discrimination and oppression suffered by Christians in 2020 must not be forgotten, even after the COVID-19 crisis fades into our collective memory. The coronavirus pandemic has exposed the persecution of Christians, but it's also shown how vulnerable so many of our sisters and brothers are in the places where they live. Christians who abandon a majority faith to follow Christ know they risk losing all support from spouses, families, tribes, and communities, as well as local and national authorities. If they lose income due to COVID-19, they can't fall back on customary networks for survival. For church leaders, the pandemic also exposed how difficult daily life is. Many are not paid salaries but depend on financial support from community donations. When church services stop, donations drop by about 40%, said leaders ranging from Egypt to Latin America. This also affects humanitarian assistance to their own communities, both inside and outside churches. See the problem? During a pandemic or natural disaster, churches help people in need. But churches were shut down because of the pandemic, so they don't have a lot of resources to help people. Some Christians in regions across the globe said the pandemic meant there was less pressure to participate in local rituals and festivals. However, most converts from majority faiths said confinement due to a COVID-19 quarantine locked them in with those most antagonistic to their faith in Jesus. This especially affected minority women and children. For millions of Christians, work, education, and other outside interests provide a brief time of calm from regular persecution. So when the lockdowns occurred, it meant this respite was no longer available. So imagine a Muslim woman converting to Christianity. Her life would be pretty difficult. But during a pandemic, she might need to move in with her parents to survive. Her parents are really angry at her for converting to Christianity. Everyone's already frustrated and desperate, and in those situations, it's easy to take out frustrations on apostates. We have also received reports that the kidnapping, forcible conversion, and forced marriage of women and girls increased during the pandemic because of increased vulnerability. Additionally, places in Latin America that are vulnerable to drug gangs have become even more dangerous for Christians since the pandemic has decreased the presence of official authorities who try to maintain order. So, things have been pretty rough for a lot of people in the West, but things have been significantly worse for people in other parts of the world. If you've been hit hard, do your best to take care of yourself and your family. If you haven't been hit hard, this is a good time to find a good organization that's helping people in need. Contact them and ask them how you can help. Doesn't have to be a Christian organization, just make sure it's an organization you trust, and they don't have to just focus on helping Christians, because we're all created in the image of God.